What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward every Tuesday and Thursday starting at noon. We've got a great lineup for you guys today. Dan Dickerson is going to join us, and we've got exclusive interviews with Darren McCarty, Tigers draft pick Dylan Dingler, and we're talking the wing wheel with the creator Dan Manis, and later in the show, FSD's Ken Daniels will join us. So, like I said, a very jam-packed show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to get right into the big three presented by our friends at Chevrolet. And you know that to do the big three, we've got to bring in co-host Art Regner, who I know is very excited for today's show after a long weekend of not doing a show for you guys. Art, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. You know what they say about me? I'm like the snack that smiles back. I'm up for the big three. Let's get it going.
You're a snack that smiles back, Art. Isn't that a goldfish?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Well, hey, I'm doing anything to try to change my luck today. I'm all about all trinkets and all kinds of things. Red underwear, breaking plates, you name it. I mean, anything to have the Red Wings win this draft lottery on Friday, I'm all for it.
All week long, Art will be practicing all of his good luck rituals here to try to make sure that the Red Wings get that first pick in the NHL draft lottery coming up this Friday. We'll talk more about that in just a minute, Art. Let's get to topic number one of the big three. The Tigers have signed another one of their draft picks, fourth round pick, Gage Workman, the third baseman out of Arizona State. The most interesting thing about this, we're obviously happy that Gage Workman is signed to a deal, but this leaves two draft picks left to negotiate, including the number one pick, Spencer Torkelson.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time. Once we're going to have Double D on Dan Dickerson, who we know is kind of, the guy behind the puppet master behind the Tiger organization. We'll find out how close Torque is to signing. I also think that, Cabrera, I think, is the other one. But, Workman is Torkelson's teammate. He's also a third baseman, really can hit for some power. A big, can hit for home runs. And, the biggest problem with him is they want him to make more contact on the ball, kind of strikes out a lot. But overall, he is one of these premier college hitters that the Tigers really focused on in this draft. They wanted to go positional players. They had the last two drafts. So, this is a good signing. Obviously, it's always good when you have like Torkelson and Workman have been teammates and they're in the same organization. Always good to have a buddy or two around, guys that you're kind of familiar with as you now go through the next phase of your baseball career, which in Torkelson's case, or the Torque Man as I call him, and Workman is obviously professional baseball, Major League Baseball. Someday, soon, we're in that old English D at Comerica Park.
Definitely, Art. We've talked about this. The Tigers draft class was receiving the grade of A or A plus all across the board. So it's exciting that they're getting these guys signed. And now we're just waiting on the official signing of Spencer Torkelson. And of course, we will bring you that as soon as we have it. Let's move on to our second topic today, Art. We're going to switch our focus to hockey now. Steve Yzerman was named the greatest player ever to wear the number 19. And this was by the poll of NHL.com writers and editors. No surprise there, but a lot of former Red Wings that either played their entire career in Detroit or just part of it were named the best to ever wear their number, including Nick Lidstrom, Gordie Howe at number 9. There was a long list of them, Art. I believe there were 14 former Red Wings to make this list.
Well, there are 14, and I want to say a qualifier. I did not have a vote, okay? I did not vote for Steve Yzerman. I would have voted for Steve Yzerman, but I did not. And then, there's some big 19s. I think the interesting thing about Steve is obviously Joe Sakic also wore number 19 with the Quebec Nordiques and then the Colorado Avalanche. And Brian Trottier, who Yzerman actually, the reason Steve Yzerman wears 19 is because of Brian Trottier, the great centerman for the New York Islanders and their dynasty teams. I'm not surprised by this. I mean, if you look at it, Luke Robitaille, Brett Hall, Chelly, Dom, Zetterberg, Murph, Hossa, Klima, Sergei, Thomas Holmstrom, they all made it as far as the best numbers. Stevie obviously is right up there. I think Steve would be the first one to tell you number 9's number 1 and number 19 is number 1A. The interesting thing I thought in this recent poll is that number 14 Brendan Shanahan did not make it. And, he wasn't considered the greatest. And, I mean, that's pretty tough to leave Shanny off the list. Some of these lists over the years, he has made it. I think Theo Fleury was number 14, who's also a great player. I'm going to ask Ken Daniels about him later on in the show when we talk about the announcement for the Hockey Hall of Fame tomorrow. Ted Lindsay at number 7. 7's a really iconic number. And, Sid Abel at number 12 did not make this list. So, the famed production line, perhaps the greatest hockey player of all time, Gordie Howe, obviously made this list, but 2 out of the 3 did not. I would have to say that Ted has to be right up there at 7. I think a lot of people might go with Phil Esposito at 7, a player of that ilk. I mean, these lists are so subjective, except when it comes to 9 and 19 and 91 and I guess 96. I mean, I don't know how many guys wore 96, but Homer getting it for 96. But, Homer played over 1,000 games for the Red Wings. Net front presence, probably the best in hockey history. Had more goals taken called back for having his big butt in the crease than he probably scored, which, is really, it's kind of a controversy among Red Wing fans. How many goals did Homer score? A lot more than he's given credit for, but an interesting list. It's always fun to bandy those things about. But Steve at 19, obvious. Gordie at 9, without question. I would think that, I think not having Terry Sawchuk at number 1, probably Jacques Plante, I think, might have got that. But, that's questionable too. So there are a couple of retired Red Wings numbers, retired by Detroit, who does not retire many numbers, as we know, that did not make this all-time list. So I don't know. I'm a little bit. I'm happy and I'm sad, all in the same breath.
They'll just have to give you a vote next time, Art.
Yeah. Yes, and it'll be Red Wings all the way, 1 through 100.
We're going to stick with the NHL for topic number 3, everybody. And this is TSN's final rankings for the NHL draft. Obviously, we've got the draft lottery coming up on Friday, and that's why Art is practicing all of his good luck rituals, because we need the Red Wings to get that number 1 pick. And it is no surprise that Alexis Lafreniere is the number 1 pick, undisputed, unanimous decision. He is the number 1 ranked prospect. And at number 2, we've got Tim Stützle, who was at number 3 back in January. So this might be the biggest note about this list. He is number 2, Art. And do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything that you've heard about Stützle from mid-season on is that this kid is really a player. He played professionally for the same team, the Mannheim team in the German league, the DEL. And I think what's interesting about Stützle, and this is what we forget, is that until he played for Mannheim, he was a centerman. So he can play center. He can play anywhere. I don't know. It might be much like if the Red Wings draft Tim Stützle. I think what you would see is for Stützle is that much like Dylan Larkin, where he had Henrik Zetterberg as his center, he might not move to center his rookie season for the Red Wings. He might be put on the wing because it's an easier position to get acclimated to the NHL style of play. But I think eventually the Red Wings, because they do need centers, may move Stützle if they do draft him to center. I mean, if you look at this, Byfield's 3, Drysdale's 4, Cole Perfetti that we hardly talk about, and the kid plays in Saginaw, is off the charts player too. This is a really, really deep draft, as we've talked about. It's really forward heavy, as they usually are, but these are good quality players. And if you look at it from that standpoint, regardless of what happens Friday night, because the Red Wings can go no further down than 4, and I know jokingly I keep saying, well, then they're going to be number 4. But the interesting thing in this draft, and I don't want to get anybody's hopes up too high, but Askarov, the goaltender, is rated 11. He's gone all the way from like 3 or 4 in the beginning of these rankings, now down to 11. I wouldn't put it past Steve to do anything, but he has I think 3 picks in the second round. Some way he could package those and maneuver where maybe he can get 2 first-round picks. One of them be, let's say Stützle, because we're talking about him, and then maybe Askarov or something. That would be a draft, as I like to say. If Steve could pull something off like that, He could definitely walk from Windsor to Detroit across the Detroit River. It would be divine intervention. It would be godlike. But, this time of week when the draft is coming up, or at least the draft lottery, the draft would have been this weekend in Montreal on Friday and Saturday. My mind starts to play tricks on me. I'm just dreaming of what the possibilities could be. But Lafreniere, obviously, would be great. Stutzla wouldn't be bad. Byfield, who's the youngest player in the draft. I still like Jamie Drysdale, but another defenseman not to sleep on. I'm not saying the Red Wings are going to go D because I don't think they will. But Jake Sanderson, who plays for the development program right out there in Plymouth, is a guy who is just skyrocketing off the charts. And another player, Jack Quinn, is a player to watch out for. But Lucas Raymond, Alexander Holtz, all of them are quality players. They're going to get a good player whenever this draft is, and we'll know exactly what their position is on Friday night.
Art, you say that you don't think the Red Wings will go defenseman because obviously they do need some goal scoring and the draft is deep in that aspect. But when you look at number 4, Jamie Drysdale being the 4th ranked prospect, do you think they would pass up on him at number 4?
Boy, that'll be an interesting question to, I guess, ask Steve in probably December or whatever the draft is. I mean, he won't say anything Friday, I don't think, but they need so much. And, the adage has always been you can't have enough defensemen. Even in the Red Wings in their glory days, if I heard it once, I heard it a million times. The Red Wings need to get bigger on the back end. They need a big, strong, physical defenseman. I mean, I heard that all the time. Now, Drysdale's not a big, strong, physical defenseman. He's a strong kid. He's only like 5'10", 5'11", but he's the most polished. And every scouting service that I've read says he's a definitive number 1, not a top pair. Most Sider is a top pair. Drysdale is a number 1. I don't know. That could be pretty hard to pass up because the Red Wings have a nice young core of defensemen. And you're saying, well, why add another one? Well, then maybe you use some trading chips. To give the Tiger metaphor a little bit, Dave Dombrowski used to draft power arms all the time, and he ended up trading like Andrew Miller and, Jacob Turner for assets that actually helped out the Tigers. Well, I think the same philosophy holds true regardless of sport. I mean, if the Red Wings find themselves having a lot of young premier defensemen, Steve can do something with that and then bring in, perhaps a stud or a goal scorer, or they're more attractive in free agency because Detroit has a young nucleus of defensemen. So I'm not worried about that. I don't worry about that stuff. You can never have enough good hockey players. I don't care what position that they play. And if Detroit wakes up one day and they have 10 guys that are young defensemen, 24 and under, that can play in the NHL and can be impact players, that benefits the Red Wings. I trust Steve knows what he's doing. He and Drapes and all those guys that run the draft, Pat Verbeek. So, if Drysdale's the pick after getting Mo Seider last year, then I'm all for it. I'm not saying it's the pick, but again, things that I've read, boy, he sounds like a really intriguing player if the Red Wings fall to number 4.
Art will be talking more about this all week and probably next week too, as the draft lottery is this Friday night, guys. It's going to be an exciting one. So we'll be talking a lot about that in the coming shows. But that wraps up our big 3 for today. Thank you to Chevy for presenting the big 3. Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC approved cleansers. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. You guys, now it's time to bring in a returning guest, one of our favorite guests to have on the Word on Woodward. It's time for our mailbag segment delivered to you by Little Caesars. And today we're going to bring in Dan Dickerson, your voice of the Tigers radio broadcast. Dan, how you doing today?
Great. I think we might finally be nearing maybe a start of a baseball season.
Yeah, let's stay on that as you mentioned it, Dan. We're going to get to some of our fan questions in just a minute, but we've seen a lot of things flying around regarding baseball's return to play. What updates can you give us right now?
Well, I mean, they're very close to a deal. It wasn't the ideal ending with the commissioner, imposing a schedule, but it looks like it's going to be 60 games. They still have to agree on the health protocols. There are still a few details to be ironed out. The owners want to know if the players, can get to wherever they are going to have spring training to by July 1st. I think all those things will be worked out, but it's not a done deal yet, but it's as close as we've been. And I do think we're going to have baseball probably starting the spring training too. I think it's going to be a very limited number of spring training games. Again, we don't know that yet. And then the ideal right now, the plan is a season to start on July 24th, which is a Friday, and probably a 60-game season.
Well, Dan, I can tell you this.
Well,
I'm
Dan,
crossing my fingers.
to Danielle, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to say something. Dan, I guess Sparky Anderson's old adage that you'll know what kind of team you have in the first 40 games. I think we'll know after 40 games in a 60-game season if the Tigers are playoff contenders or not. I mean, we'll really get a good idea of what kind of team that they have. I've heard expanded playoffs. I mean, this is good news, but I don't want to throw any kind of water on this because they've been working on it forever. The Players Association and that, but again. Every day there seems to be something else about COVID-19. So as I've said, and I just want to be cautious here, is that in the end, COVID-19 is going to have the final say whether there's sports or not. And right now, I mean, I don't know. I think this is great news. I'm encouraged by this news. Everybody wants to play, but don't get too disappointed if is that virus rears its ugly head again. I mean, that's just the facts and the time that we're living in. But I credit, they finally did something. As Dan said, it's not what they all probably wanted. I think that the players are going to go with this because their contract, they're going to be up for a new deal very, very soon. So I think at this point, they didn't want to commit to anything that could come back and haunt them in their negotiation with the owners. So I think this is what everybody sort of thought was going to happen anyway. If it does happen, the 60-game schedule.
Well, let's jump into our first question, you guys, because this is kind of related to the topic of the Tigers playing a shortened season. How do you think the Tigers would do in that scenario? And this question is from Chris from Guelph. Dan, this one's for you.
Well, I mean, when you talk about a 47-win team and how they're going to do the next year, the optimistic scenario would be, hey, get into the 75-win area. Right now, all bets are off, which to me, in a very good way, all bets are off, because truly the one thing that you can expect in a 60-game season is the unexpected. You just don't know what can happen in a 60-game season. Does that mean the Tigers will be contenders for a playoff spot? I think they absolutely have a chance to. Why? Because 30, 31 wins might get you in, 32 wins. Could you be a little over 500 the year after winning only 47 games through 60 games? Well, the Tigers were 36 and 37, 73 games in a couple of years ago, and they went on to lose 98 games. Anything is possible in the short season. The improvements they made, and then, with the free agents they signed, Scope and Crone, the way Cabrera looked in spring, and then you add in, how are the Tigers going to use the Manning, Skubal, Mises of the world? And it could get very creative, and those guys could make a big impact, and it could get very interesting very fast. This is going to be the heightened attention on every single game is really going to be something. You're going to see creativity. You're going to see thinking out of the box, because 60 games is just, it's a sprint. The opposite of what we hear every year. And so it's going to be fascinating. The Tigers can absolutely be contenders. They absolutely can be.
You mentioned bringing up Casey Mize, Skubal, and Matt Manning. There was potential talks of before COVID-19 hit and everything that these guys could be in the major leagues this season, whether it be near the end of the season sometime, in July or August, just to get a few games in there. Is there a chance we see them at the beginning of the season with the shortened season?
I don't think at the beginning, but I think that, again, middle of the season is, 30 games in, it's September 1st.
Right.
It won't be your typical September call-ups, because there won't be September call-ups this year, or at least it's going to be a very floating, fluid roster. So when could it be? The thing is, you have to always keep in mind, there would have been a Toledo probably getting their innings in and then the call-up. I felt like Mize would just force his way onto the major league roster by May. They don't have those innings to accumulate, so is the best thing for them to play the inner squads or whatever they're going to do to keep those guys fresh who aren't on the 30-man major league roster, and apparently that's about what it's going to be, a 30-man roster. it seems like logical that, okay, they're looking great. They built up their arm strength, 20 games in, 30 games in. Why not bring these guys up with the flexibility you have with a 30-man roster and maybe do piggyback starts? You know, that they're piggybacking 3 innings at a time with either one of the other rookies or with a veteran. I mean, that's the kind of thing I think you will see. And I'd be surprised if we didn't see 2 of the 3, if not all 3.
You know, Danielle, I just want to say something. There's a couple of things going on here. First of all, Phil Fulmer could be ready, which would be a huge, huge asset to the Tigers. If or Phil Fulmer, Michael Fulmer, I got that Tennessee coach on my mind ever since. Yeah, ever since he screwed Michigan in that college vote back in '97. But Michael Fulmer could come back. I think that Double D. You know, he has the inside track on when the Torque Man's going to be signed, and you know he's going to be pushing for him to make his major league debut. It's only 60 games. It's going to go by very, very quickly. And Double D, I've got to say this. Your background looks like an Andy Warhol lithograph or something. I mean, you have these 3 colors going where you go from fall to spring, and then it looks like dead winter. I mean, that is a very impressive, and that's real, right? There you go. I mean, that's just incredible. You know that.
I don't know why
that's yeah, it's really a great background. I just have to say that. But hey, I'm looking forward to it. Anything can happen in a 60-game schedule. You're absolutely right. You know, if it. You know, we always talk about in the NHL like 3 or 4 point games when you're playing a team closely in the standings. Every baseball game is going to be like worth 5 or something. I mean, these are huge games. I mean, if you get behind 2 or 3 games in a 60-game schedule, boy, you better turn it around real quick or you're going to find yourself out of it quickly. And, you know, that can happen. But the Tigers are in a position, especially if some of these young arms and, you know, they're a power hitting team, they can jack some of the balls out and all that. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is pretty exciting because I would imagine that in a short 60-game season, like Double D's talking about, a team that's rebuilding, you know, hey, it's like they're playing with house money. You know, their expectations aren't high. It's only 60 games. Boom. They could actually do some damage. I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I think we all are. Let's move on to our second question, though, you guys. And Art, this one is from you. Eric from Livonia asked, you mentioned smashing plates as a good luck charm. Do you double your luck doing that in red underwear? Wow, Art, this is right up your alley.
Well, you know, this is where I'm trying to figure it out. You know, I mean, obviously, I have all my red underwear in reserve here. There you go. And you know, and I am wearing red underwear today. I will be wearing it all week. Not the same pair because I have multiple pairs of red underwear. But I'm one of those people that if you, I know you were worried about that, Daniela. But if you, like, you know, like people who cross their fingers, I've always been taught if you double cross your fingers, then you nullify the good luck. You know, you just one thing. So I'm thinking if in my red underwear, I smash a bunch of dinner plates and then throw them on my neighbor's porch, like that's supposed to be good luck, what they do in China, but I have my red underwear on, does that kind of nullify it? So I'm sort of going through my mind where perhaps what I should do is each day I'll do a different good luck tradition from a different land. Like it's red underwear, which is a Spanish tradition. The plates is the Chinese tradition. You know, I guess I could do, you know, maybe a 4-leaf clover, I guess would have to go back to Ireland, but I'm still not sure because I do not want to ruin the Red Wings' chances of winning the draft lottery on Friday. So I think probably to answer the question, I'm going to hold off on doubling down, so to speak. So today it's red underwear. Tomorrow I'm throwing plates on my neighbor's porches, broken plates, and then we'll see what Thursday and Friday bring. But I'm definitely gonna be doing it. And I'm up for anything at this point. The Red Wings need to win that lottery. They need to win. You know, they need a 1-1. You know, I know that's a baseball term, 1-1. But the Red Wings need a 1-1 draft. They need Alexis Lafreniere. Let's do it. Red underwear, broken plates, you name it. I'm there. I'm going to do it.
Art, I'm excited for the draft lottery on Friday for many reasons, but the number one reason might be we can stop talking about your underwear on the show after that.
Well, unfortunately, it's become such a hot, popular topic that it even has its own website now. Art's Red Underwear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go to that
it'll answer
website.
it'll answer all your questions about life and everything. I mean, I never knew underwear was so philosophical, so deep. But hey, red underwear, yeah, you have to do it.
All right, let's get back into the baseball questions. And of course, this one is for Dan. Brian from Holly asks, what will be harder to get up to speed, hitting timing or pitching control?
I think that's a great question. In spring training, you always hear pitchers are ahead of hitters. The first live BP, hitters are overmatched. And then the first week of spring training games, you see a 16-8 game in Arizona or Florida. So you throw that right out the window. This is a little bit different. And I think the advantage early on might go to pitchers because I think many, and I know some Tiger pitchers are, throwing simulated games right now as much as possible. It's very hard to simulate a major league game. But if you're going out there, and I know some guys, going onto a local field, throwing a number of pitches, sitting down to simulate a game as much as possible. In other words, it's just the pitches, the sitting down, the getting up, the throwing the warm-up pitches, trying to simulate how many pitches you would throw in a game. They want to be as ready as possible. They don't want to be in 3 weeks in a normal spring training. You'd be at 3 or 4 innings. They want to be at 6 and 7 innings ready when the regular season starts. I think for hitters without exhibition games, it's going to be tough to get that timing. So because this is so different, I would say maybe edge to pitchers early on. But I think that the spring training is also instructive, that every year you hear pitchers are ahead and hitters inevitably show they can get that timing back really fast. So I think in the long run, I think some teams might have an advantage with the pitchers being sharper and it might dominate early on. But I do think don't be surprised if you see hitters regain their timing because the great hitters seem to be able to do that remarkably quickly.
Hopefully we get to see that fairly soon here. We're going to move on to the fourth question, and this one is for Art first, and then Dan, you're going to answer after him. Sam from Howell asks, a few years ago, Gardy's phone went off and his ringtone was Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. Do you think he has the same ringtone? Now, you guys, I think it was Al Avila that called him at that time, so that may be a special ringtone just for Al, don't you think?
Well, let's face it, if you've gone through what Gardy's gone through with this rebuild, I mean, what better song to have as your ringtone than, the great Kelly Clarkson with Stronger. I think that tune really, really rocks. And, as a matter of fact, I know that there's several hockey players that love Kelly Clarkson. Stronger is a real inspirational tune. It's a real rocker. I would be surprised if Gardy changed it. I mean, let's face it. As soon as Kelly starts belting that tune out, you know what? Call me crazy. I feel stronger. I feel stronger. I mean, I can take my day. Anything that comes my way, I'm stronger. I'm ready. Let's do it. It's kind of like that old song, Daniela. This is probably in your wheelhouse. If he doesn't have Stronger, I hope he changes it to that classic that was probably big when you were in high school or for your graduating class. Remember Vitamin C, who did You Gotta Be, whatever. She had some song that was an inspirational tune that for one summer, I knew when I was stopped at a light if there was a high school kid driving next to me because it was just blaring. Vitamin C, whatever, so, I mean, sorry about that, but that's the only thing. If it's not Stronger, Gardy should go to the Vitamin C song.
What do you think, Dan? Are you on the Kelly Clarkson train too?
No.
Oh, man. Double D.
No, clearly he has changed it. Gardy is old school in the best way. So I'm looking to the 60s and 70s, and I'm thinking, first of all, somebody got his phone and just put that in there as a joke. He's definitely back to the classics. So I think he's got either Sultans of Swing from Dire Straits or Don't Fear the Reaper. One of the two to come up with the times. And one of those two will be, I think, his ringtone. Not necessarily for Al only, but just as his general ringtone. I think it's more classic rock.
Dan, what's your ringtone?
What's that?
Go ahead. What's your
ringtone? Is unchanged. It's just one of the ones that came with the phone. Just that little guitar riff. That's it. Haven't changed it for 10 years.
Based on Double D thing, if Gardy's going to go classic rock, then based on the way the seasons have played out the last couple of years, he has to go with Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, because he's not getting much satisfaction right now. So, and that's a great tune, by the way, I know, but I guess the lyrics are a little, PG-13 or whatever the code is, but that's what I would go with for sure. I would, if I were Gardy, I would go with Satisfaction.
I like that too, Art, but hopefully it's a little bit better for this season. And hopefully that season is announced really soon. We'll have all of that news for you guys as it comes in. Dan, thank you so much for joining us for the mailbag today. Always great to have you.
All right, guys. Always enjoy it.
See you, Double
And
D.
a big thank you to our friends at Little Caesars for presenting the mailbag. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. You guys, we still got a lot coming up on today's show. We're going to catch up with Ken Daniels later. We're going to talk to the Red Wings' own Dan Manis, who was behind the creation of the wing wheel. But for now, let's catch up with Carly.
That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by none other than Darren McCarty. How's it going, D-Mac?
Going good, Carly. Good to catch up with you.
Absolutely. I know we've gotten to talk a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but what have you been up to during these past couple months? Stay at home to stay busy.
Well, I tell everybody that my biggest discovery was that I have an introvert side. Who would have thought that, right? So I met my introverted side.
Luckily for you, having your own podcast is something you can do at home. Can you walk us through the creation and how your Grind Time podcast has been going?
Yeah, so Grind Time with Darren McCarty, and it's been interesting because everybody's had to learn to adjust. So we turned it, instead of doing the transformation of the Grind Time episodes, which we can't do in studio, we've done them online. So I've done it, Tuesday and Thursdays or a couple times a week, and I call it 25 on 19 while we're in the COVID. So it's a little bit of a different format than what Grind Time is and what Grind Time will be. And it's pretty much when people say, what is Grind Time with Darren McCarty? And I say, it's mine. It's all about whatever I want to talk about. And usually it's all the things that I'm involved in. It's not just the sports, but we'll talk about that. Obviously, the wings and stuff is a big part, but there's so many other things that I'm involved in. You can see over my shoulder here, that's the Donnybrook. That's the Donnybrook comic book. That's my team I created, Burnaby Blazers, and it's stories, hockey stories. It's an adult comic book, so it's all the great junior stories and all the different stuff like that. Also, my book that I wrote 8 years ago, My Last Fight, True Story of a Hockey Rock Star, is being turned into a graphic novel, 150 pages. So we're working on that with some of the best artists around. So keeping busy with that. Obviously, the health and wellness, and introducing people to how they can take care of themselves in all different ways. I've been fortunate enough where I have also too, not with just a podcast, but on Friday nights from 7 to 8 o'clock. Now you have to listen carefully because it might shock a lot of people, but I have a show, the Darren McCarty Show on WJR, AM 760 from 7 to 8 on Friday nights with my buddy Sean Belegian.
Okay, let's talk about your playing days. You were drafted by the Red Wings in the 92 entry draft, selected 49th overall. What goes through your head as a young hockey player when you hear your name called by an original six team like the Detroit Red Wings?
Well, especially for me, growing up 40 minutes from the Joe, give or take 10 minutes for the border, and that was my team. And, people ask, well, why, how could you cheer the Red Wings when they were the Dead Wings back then? And I said, I had the Tigers, I had Lance Parrish, Kirk Gibson, and all those guys. So, and it was everybody else, all my cousins and friends were Montreal Toronto fans. So I said, just, wait one day, and then Steve was there, and then Proby and Joey were beating everybody up, and it was awesome. And being a little kid I remember going to Olympia and going to Joe Louis, but to have that sort of dream come true, it honestly, I still remember that those chills through your body of just excitement are really when you hear your name, and the fact to be Detroit, it couldn't be more than I could have asked for, and just to have the opportunity. And then what can I say? The way that everything played out, it's blessed in so many ways by the support of so many people.
And speaking of that year, you were called up by the Red Wings. You, Chris Osgood, and Chris Draper all got called up around the same time. This is something you talked about in your podcast. Was there a special bond formed between you guys all going through that transition into the NHL together?
Well, here's the thing, right? So Ozzy and I came in together in Adirondack that year. I lived upstairs. He lived downstairs. We played, and Mike Castleman, they lived together, and we would play Sega Genesis all night long and have a blast. So we formed our relationship really early. I made the team out of training camp when Scotty came in '93. So I didn't go down, but Ozzy and Drapes did, and then they came up about a month in or whatever. But Ozzy and I had already formed that relationship, and Drapes, when he came in, it was just, it was always the three of us. And then until Maltz came, and then Marty Lapointe was a big part, and then Dandy came along, and Kevin Hodgson, and more or less and that was we're the younger, the young bucks, or whatever you want to call it, compared, because if you look at the age group and the experience on the team. So that's why why the three biggest moves for us to get over to finish off the recipe for Scotty was getting Shanny, and then Larry, and then Joey Kosher and Larry, because Joey Kosher, we call him Papa, but he's the father of not just the grind line, but all us younger guys. And I like to say, Scotty came in, and he came in as the lion tamer or whatever, but he had invisible fencing on us, where he taught us how to be professional and pick our spots. And I'm speaking on myself more than Drapes or more than anything, because Drapes was always the responsible one. Drapes would always get in trouble for anything. And it was usually Ozzy that did it, not me, right? So it was, but it's the relationship and the different levels, but everybody, and it plays forward to this day. So it started back then, but it rings true, all the things, not just hockey, but life we've all been through, and we're still here busting each other's chops any chance we get.
Constantly. I know it too. Okay, fast forward to 1997. I can't interview you without asking about, of course, the infamous fight night at the Joe, when you caught revenge against Colorado Avalanche's Claude Lemieux. Okay, what happened? Can you walk me through that fight? I know the whole thing with Draper, but tell me what was going through your mind. I want to see it from your point of view.
Well, the brilliance of it, right here, Carl, you got to understand, and to say it, it's things in life and things in hockey, right? Mm-hmm. Happen, and we regret it or we feel bad for it, right? But you can never lose respect for a fellow human being. And when Claude Lemieux hit Chris Draper from behind, and then did not apologize, and then said he never would have hurt a Chris Draper if he didn't do that. And anyways, he probably just made Draper millions of dollars. Right. So to me, as the character of the man that I am and the way that I was raised, that's really wrong. So not only that, but do I get to stew over this for 10 months? And you hear, if you see the Russian Five, or you hear when guys talk about it, we never talk about it. And the only thing ever was said was by me when I picked Drapes up at the hospital and said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I mean, it's like the bully, or it's like the rivalry with the high school, or everybody has that rivalry that you have to win the game. That was the most important. Now, granted, if no matter what would have happened, he was going to get it. I'm on the ice. I see him hit him. I look over and go, oh, man, it looks like puppies on Christmas morning. That's so cute. And then I realize, oh, we're in this. I see Lemieux, and I'm looking, and I know I'm going to get him. Unfortunately, Adam Foote with the big nose has me, and he's really strong. But then Shanny comes flying in and double chops me, and I elude the linesman, and I just pop out, and that's the difference between a cold cock and a sucker punch. Cold cock from behind, no good. 99.6% of the time, the other 0.4, they deserved it. But a cold cock, and how many times have I seen that face, Carly, over the previous 10 months of what I was going to do? Right, and here is the kicker. Everybody watch my fights. I'm a lefty. I hit him so hard. The right's harder, as it proved to be, but I never hit anything on the button like that. It felt like when you hit the perfect golf shot, and it just doesn't. You don't even feel the ball off your club. That was his face. But for all that to happen, and I don't realize till the goalie. So I'm watching the video after that. All this stuff's going on around me. And that's great and all that. Then we're down 5-3, right? We have to still win the game. I'm not saying that if the butt kicking wouldn't have meant something, but we had to win the game. We were able to tie it up, and the whole kicker to the whole thing, the whole God shot, the whole everything is the game scored an overtime winner, which we know in hindsight, because hindsight's great when it's positive, that led to the cup and led to the goal. And the one time I beat one guy one-on-one. It's just you got to do it for timing, guys. It's timing.
There you go. Exactly. All right. Well, Darren, you're a man of the fans, truly the most personable guy I know. Do you have a message for all the fans watching this at home?
Yeah, just hopefully everybody has been able to stay safe and healthy out there, and just get ready. I think that one of the things is that moving forward is that all of us can take a look and maybe listen a little bit more, and just, I always say, here it is, right? Look, don't ever lie to that person that you look at in the mirror. And when you can be honest to that person, right, then you can start. And it's good. It's not about good, bad, or indifferent, or how you look. And it's with that person. And when you can have a relationship with that person, then you have a chance. And we're going to always be around promoting. There's so many great things, especially like just in the Red Wing world, but also in Detroit. And everybody out there, it's that, it's that connection. I tell everybody, and it's the truth. I'm a battery. You guys are all my power. I can't wait to get out there and see you again.
That's awesome. I love that. Tuesday Words of Wisdom by DMAC. That was amazing. Darren, once again, I can't thank you enough for your time and for being on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Take care, and I hope to see you very, very soon.
You betcha, Carly. We'll see you soon, and go Wings.
Go Wings.
Always great to hear from Darren McCarty. As Carly said, one of the most personable guys you can talk to. And we know he's a fan favorite. So thank you, Carly and Darren. And Carly, you're going to stick with us for this one because it's time for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. And Art is taking the reins on this one again. And you guys know that I'm not very good at these. So like I said before, when Art's in charge, I'm not super excited because they're always really hard. So take it away, Art.
Well, first and foremost, I want to tell everybody that it's tweeting to me or sending me emails or instant messaging me. Yes, it's the graduation song by Vitamin C. I know that, okay? I kind of had a slip there for a second. I just kept saying the Vitamin C song. I know it's the graduation song. Okay, with that said, that's out of the way. I appreciate everyone, piling on me. So that's just great. But I do love that song, by the way, Vitamin C. I always like, C. But anyway, let's get into Bet You Didn't Know. And this one's a pretty easy one.
Okay.
In honor of Father's Day that just happened a couple of days ago, which one of these Tigers players' fathers did not play Major League Baseball, did not make it to the big show? Which one of these players? Austin Romine, Jacoby Jones, or CJ Crone? Now, two of their fathers played Major League Baseball. One of them didn't. Yes. So which one of these Tigers fathers did not did not play Major League Baseball.
Who's going first? You have to pick.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? I'm kind of thinking, do I know the answer to this one? Austin Romine, Jacoby Jones, CJ Crone. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. Because I know, Daniela, you're feeling really confident, really good about yourself, and Michigan State gave you your degree back because you're on a bit of a winning streak. I will say you go first.
Okay. I am feeling confident. So that's true. And I honestly don't know why I think I know this. And I'm going to get accused of cheating. I know it, but we did not know this question, you guys. I promise we did not even know what the topic was going to be today. But I'm going with B, Jacoby Jones. And I'm feeling real confident about it.
Okay, Jacoby Jones' father did not play in the major leagues. Okay. Carly?
I'm going to second that. I'm kind of leaning over, looking at Daniela's desk to see what she answered for this question, but that's my guess. I'm going to say Jacoby Jones. I had a feeling, but when she said it, it kind of solidified it for me.
All right, ladies. I tip my cap to you both. You're absolutely right. It is Jacoby Jones. His father did not play in the major leagues. His dad, Bubba, never played in the big leagues, but Bubba Jones was in the ballpark in the stands the day that Jacoby got his first major league hit. I was actually watching that game. So it was Jacoby and his father and mother were in the stands when he got his first major league hit. Unfortunately, Bubba never, ever played in the major leagues. And there you have it. There's the hit. Oh, he actually drove in a run, it looks like. There you go, Jacoby. And I remember his parents, and I do remember there's Bubba and Mrs. Jones, and they're very, very happy for Jacoby. He points up to his parents. Jacoby looks a lot like his mom. But with that said, then Austin Romine, his dad, Kevin, was a first-round pick for the Bo Sox and played for Boston for the Red Sox for 6 seasons. His brother, Andrew, also played for the Tigers. Now, CJ Cron has kind of an interesting background. His dad, Chris, was drafted by the Tigers. Never signed with Detroit, but played with the Braves and the White Sox. And his brother, Kevin, now plays for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So CJ Crone has a long family history, but you're absolutely right. Romine, Crone, their dads played in the big leagues. Jacoby Jones, Bubba did not play in the big leagues, but Bubba was there for his son when he got his first major league hit. So there you have it. Congratulations. I don't know what you two have done lately, but you're both riding kind of hot streaks. And so I just have to say, way to go.
Awesome. Now I have a question. So CJ,
go ahead, Carly.
His dad's name Chris. Does CJ stand for Chris Jr.?
I'll tell you what. Why not? For intensive moving the segment along, yes, it does.
We'll have to Google that one later.
Yes, sir.
Well, you're going to have to come up with some better questions. Harder questions,
bet I will.
should say.
You bet I will. Oh, they're going to be really, really tough.
Oh, boy.
Maybe I don't want you to do that. I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
Taking it back.
No. You've thrown down the gauntlet, Daniela. The challenge has been accepted.
All right. Well, we'll be ready for it. A big thank you to our friends at Motor City Casino Hotel for presenting Bet You Didn't Know this week and every week here on The Word on Woodward. Carly, I'm going to let you take this one away because I know you've got some social media news for us.
Thanks, Danielle. That's right. And as you guys know, we celebrated Father's Day on Sunday. And in honor of Father's Day, the Detroit Tigers asked you Tigers fans on Twitter to send in their best dad jokes. So here are some favorites that I picked out that I saw on Twitter. Okay, so what do we have here? I like telling dad jokes. Sometimes he laughs. Good one. Pretty bad. What did the drummer call his daughters? Anna 1, Anna 2. And this was my favorite. Name a rock group with 4 guys, but nobody sings. Mount Rushmore, personal favorite. And then, of course, we have the classic, I don't trust stairs, They're always up to something. I just had to share that with you guys. Look at the dad shoes on the graphic as well. And then on the Detroit Tigers end, I wanted to point out a fun fact and a very cool fact that the Wings retweeted yesterday. Mike Ilitch, better known as Mr. I, he bought the team 38 years ago yesterday. And with that, winning 4 cups with the team. Very cool fact. And what an incredible turnaround for the team. I mean, what an incredible time in Red Wings history. But that's all I have, Daniela and Art. And fans, don't forget to send in your questions for us to answer later in the show.
Carly, that was great. And you said it at the end there. The best part of those dad jokes were the dad shoes on the graphic. That was awesome. You guys, we've still got a lot coming up in today's show. Dylan Dingler, the Tigers draft pick, will be sitting down with Dan Dickerson in a little bit. Hey, we got 2 double Ds there. Art calls Dan Dickerson double D, Dylan Dingler double D. So that right there, that'll be a great interview. And of course, we've got Ken Daniels as the headliner later in the show. Right now, you guys, we're going to give you a deeper look behind the Red Wings' new documentary series. Let's get into Downtown Hockey Town, everybody, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest is the mastermind behind the Winged Wheel, our friend and coworker, coordinating producer for the Detroit Red Wings, Dan Manis. Dan, I was going to give you a little crap about your beard, and because I thought you were going to shave it for the interview, but you didn't. I love it. That's got to be one of the best quarantine beards.
Oh, thank you, Daniela, and thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Art, looking handsome as always. Daniela, looking great. The beard, quarantine beard. Not much more else you can say on that one.
Exactly.
Well,
go ahead, Art.
I'm sorry, Daniel. I just want to say Dan and I are both Greek, and the chest hair that I lack has all been transferred to Dan. So I know where my chest hair is. It's right there on Dan.
Yeah, it was. Have plenty of that to go around.
We got to make sure we have much fun with Dan before we get serious here. But I do have to tell everybody else one more fun fact before we talk about the Winged Wheel. Art and Dan were actually roommates on the road, and that is one of my favorite stories ever. So I had to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It was in Ottawa, and we had to stay an extra night because of a snowstorm. And then the next day was like the 18-hour trip to New York City. But anyway, I'm sitting there. I have on the Central Michigan hockey shirt that they gave me when they were trying to get a Division I hockey, and I'm in red underwear, which I'm keeping for good luck for the draft. And I'm sitting there writing my story, and I'm thinking, okay, I know guys got doubled up, but I'm in the same room I was in the night before, so I'm just sitting there writing, and all of a sudden I get this knock on the door, and I'm thinking, my God, who is this? I open up the door, and it's Dan. So there were 2 beds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting there, Dan and I are talking. Then we had one of those other doors in there, and all of a sudden someone pounds on that door. Dan opens it up, and it's Anthony Mantha telling me to shut up.
All very true. All of this is true. And helping Art pack him the next day with his giant suitcase.
That's the one good thing that came out of that by far was Dan taught me how to pack, because I'm notoriously known on the road. I pack like we're going away to Siberia for 80 days. I could not shut my suitcase until Dan taught me how to roll clothes. Rolling clothes and packing that way. And you know what? And they're not wrinkled. They're not wrinkled at all. I mean, no. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. We actually bonded on that trip. I mean, that was
absolutely. That was a
lot. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was weird, but it was fun. I mean, because we usually we don't have roommates on the road. It's not like the 50s when everybody had roommates or whatever. But it was a good time. But anyway, I'm sorry, Danielle. Go right. Hey, when I'm with my roomie, we
I know. I was ready for it. But we are here to talk about the Winged Wheel and all of the production that went into it. But before we do that, Dan, why don't you kind of describe your position with the Red Wings and what you do?
Sure. My position reports to entertainment services and broadcasting, which is really a division within the sports and entertainment group that is primarily responsible for video production, stuff you see in arena, broadcasts, all of that. My job is essentially to produce content and help with all the other productions and bringing them to life it really ranges anywhere from social media to website to going out and shooting B-roll of community initiatives. It's kind of an all-encompassing position, but primarily a shooter, editor, producer, director, whatever it's kind of evolved over time for sure.
The documentary, The Winged Wheel, how did that come about? Because obviously you've been doing this for a while now. You've been behind the scenes for years. Was this just the final culmination? It was always kind of leading to this documentary.
I would say that, I was extremely inspired by the 24/7 series that the NHL does for the leading up to the Winter Classic. The cinematography, the direction in which they tell those stories is definitely where this show is heading. But the biggest obstacle is getting the brand off the ground. And it's been an upward battle really over the 8 years that I've been here. It was never really, I've tried this before, just doing like a season recaps and pieces, but it was never branded. There was never really cohesion between the episodes. It was really only if you had been tuning in to all the content, you would kind of see, oh, this was part one of that season, part two, etc. With this, we're really trying to just establish a brand and have a resting place for all these awesome stories that are going to come of this team and moving forward. And it's meant to really, as much as season one is kind of a drag with the results of the season, you really hope that people understand that, this is the start of something bigger and better, and we got to start somewhere. And I felt the time was when Steve arrived. That's the chapter. That's the new chapter of this era of Red Wings hockey. And as much as it did stink to not have many wins and not many positive moments, I think that teaching people and seeing these guys go through adversity was really the big objective of season one.
Dan, sometimes we're spoiled. We get to see the behind the scenes all the time, especially you. So when you were putting this together, what did you try to highlight for the fans? I guess the better way to word this question is, what can fans expect to see from your documentary series?
I think the fans can expect to see just the honest, like when we're losing and we're going through losing streaks, we're not shying away from, the reality of the situations. There's behind the scenes of travel. There's behind the scenes in the locker room stuff that nobody's heard, especially like coach speeches, guys throwing the pucks to each other at the end of the game. Some of that we do just, put right out on social media, but to have it packaged in this manner and be able to, going into the season knowing that I was going to hold on to some things like Samantha mic'd up that we never release is in episode 2. That's really fun. And we hope to evolve those types of things as guys get comfortable with this storyline and how we're packaging this type of content, which you'll see all around the league. There's tons of these shows. I would say over half the NHL teams have some type of behind the scenes documentary style show, but this is really just a good repository for all that content that we shoot on the daily basis, right? Like a lot of the hockey is pretty systematic. Like you're doing kind of the same things every day, but how do you take that and maybe enhance it and teach the fans more about what it actually means to go through this rebuild, what it means to see guys like Dylan and Anthony grow up before our eyes, Tyler. Like we're seeing these guys really come into a point in their career where they have to take steps forward, and you hope that you can get the fans educated and understand what Steve's trying to do with this rebuild.
The Winged Wheel is now available on the Red Wings YouTube channel. You can watch all of the episodes there. And Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Which episode is your personal favorite?
I would definitely say episode 2 or 7. 2 is just great because Anthony was such he had so much fun with the mic'd up, and that's really all you can ask for with these guys is their trust as a producer and knowing that you have a hot mic on them, and it really does change the way that they act or feel. But getting Anthony, somebody that's very comfortable with, I met the kid the minute he was drafted in 2013, so I've known him his whole professional career. Having that trust or that camaraderie between us allows for a better, mic'd up feature, which is a lot more fun. I really hope fans enjoy, and we hope to do more of them. But episode 7, I mean, it really just kind of drove home, you could see the wheels starting to turn with these guys. You know, they've got a couple big wins against two big teams that they haven't beaten in a while, especially Tampa. You know, that one felt good. But to then go into, you know, this pause progress, like it's very interesting to see, and I'm very curious of how this will all work out. But I've got nothing but hope. Friday is a very big day in this team's organizational history. Hopefully, it's all good things for us. But really, in reality, the biggest thing I want anybody to take away from this series is have hope. Here's some insight to what it is going to take, and we'll get more insight as people get comfortable with the series being public facing. I think from the inside too.
You know, I think you hit the key here. And I think anybody that does what we do for a living is that if you're going to be successful or build up a relationship with any athlete, they have to trust you. If they don't trust
100%.
you, then you're not going to get anything. And you've been able to do that. And I think that that's what's really, really good about this series is that they do trust you. And, you know, and let's be honest, Big Tony, the BT Express is one of the best as far as as being honest. And yeah, I really like, I know Ed Kelly is the narrator for this. I really like the segments of two that stand out to me are on Jonathan Bernier and Anthony Mantha. I think that they were very well written. And so I give you a lot of compliments on that.
I can't take all the compliments. Our faithful leader, Pete Scorch, helped me write the show. We went back and forth on the script narration, and I worked with Ed to make it really come alive. I really love that Liv Schreiber 24/7 type feel, and he was able to kind of nail it.
Oh, yeah.
He did really well with that.
Yeah, it's just a good job.
Yeah, it really was. And I can promise you guys so much hard work went into this documentary. And if you haven't checked it out already, make sure you head over to the Red Wings YouTube page. You can watch all of the episodes there. A big thank you to Dan for joining us today. Again, the mastermind behind the Winged Wheel. And of course, a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockey Town. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. One more reminder, guys, head over to the Red Wings YouTube channel to watch all of the episodes of The Winged Wheel. I know Art and I both have. Art, didn't you really enjoy watching? Really, every episode was good, but I agreed with Dan. Episode 2 was really cool.
Yeah, I liked all of them. Obviously, part of the my job and traveling with the team on occasions, you get to see that. You get to see that side. I mean, they do a lot of travel, boy. It's no sooner are they they playing a game, then they're on the bus, and then they're at the airport, and then they're on the plane, and it gives you great insight. What I really like about this is that this is season 1, let's say, of the Winged Wheel. Well, when we get to season 4 or 5, watching it from season 1 all the way through, which will be a culmination, of a Stanley Cup, I think you're going to see how this team is being built. And I think that that's really, really fascinating. It gives you an insight into professional sports and how a team, not only the of how they are on the ice, but how they need to bond off the ice, and how much they practice and how much they work at it, and how much really goes into it. You know, sometimes we kind of have a tendency to forget. You know, we how many times have you heard it? You know, an athlete, yeah, he plays a game for a living, and he shows up, plays a 2-3 hour game, and then goes home. There's a lot more to it, and the Winged Wheel shows you all of that. And and Dan's right. I mean, this coming Friday is a big day in Red Wing history if they can somehow win the draft lottery. But again, I want to stress they're going to get one of the top 4 picks. They're going to get a quality player whenever the draft is. But great job by Dan Manis. He works his tail off, and certainly. I enjoyed every aspect of it. I find it fascinating. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker when I graduated from college. I moved to New York City. That's another story. But to try to pursue documentary filmmaking, it's a really difficult field. It's really competitive. And, for Dan to be able to, persevere. And, and it's not easy. This was a tough season for the Red Wings. No one's shying away from it. But to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that it's a story of optimism and hope in a way. I think it's something that, could make you feel pretty good, even though the results aren't exactly what we wanted this season.
Yeah, and Art, as you alluded to, this is season 1. So it's starting during this rebuilding phase. Eventually, we're going to get to see the really cool stuff too. The Stanley Cup championships, the playoff runs, all that stuff is going to be a behind the scenes look. So really great job, Dan. I love the behind the scenes look. Fans, you got to check this out. If you haven't, checked it out on the Red Wings YouTube page. Make sure you do that. But the Red Wings are also hosting a watch party on Facebook, which will be tomorrow at noon. So you can watch episodes 2 and 3. And I hear the BT Express is even going to make an appearance. Anthony Mantha, if you guys don't know the nickname. So he's going to come on and talk about the wing wheel as well. So it's going to be really, really exciting. Make sure you guys tune into that again. That's tomorrow at noon, Facebook watch party for episodes 2 and 3 of the wing wheel. Now, guys, we're going to move on to some baseball talk and get into Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren Healthcare. And for this one, we're going to pass it over to Dan Dickerson, who is with one of the the Tigers 2020 draft picks.
And joining us now is Dylan Dingler, the Tigers' second round draft pick this year. And boy, were they happy to get him with the 38th overall pick. He was projected to go maybe higher. The Tigers got him with the start of the second round, and the catcher out of Ohio State. Tigers couldn't be happier to have you, Dylan. Why don't we just talk about what's it like now that you're assigned to be a Tiger?
No, it's fantastic. It's definitely a dream. The process happened so slowly due to the season being cut short this year and just everything going on in the world. But I'm very happy to be where I am now and can't wait.
We certainly heard a lot leading up to the draft about how this was impacting players, but we were hearing it from scouts and analysts. What was it like from your perspective to suddenly have, and you were off to a terrific start, your junior season cut short like it was when you were really off on a good roll? And I just want to feel for what it was like for you, because it had to be very strange.
Yeah, it was strange. I've been playing ball my entire life, and not having a baseball season playing was really weird. Kind of came at that rough time, just at the start of the season. I think we're 4 weeks in or so. So it was definitely a little of an adjustment. But just to put things in better perspective, a lot of worse things. It was a big deal with the whole pandemic, whole COVID, and we weren't able to play a game for the remainder of the season. So just trying to put that in perspective kind of made it a little bit easier. But yes, it was pretty tough to not go out there and play with the boys and finish out the season.
I wanted to just give fans a kind of little overview of your college career, some of the things you accomplished that not many have done in a college career. In 3 years, and one was a little bit injury shortened, or certainly affected by an injury, and then this year, of course, was shortened to 13 games. You were drafted as a catcher, but a center fielder for 30 games your freshman year. You were voted team captain as a sophomore by your teammates. That's unusual. And then you also, in that time, you were allowed to call your own games. And that, from my understanding, is really unusual. So it suggests that you're athletic, you're a leader, you worked very hard at your craft. It seems like you accomplished quite a bit in your 3 years at Ohio State.
Yeah, I would like to think so. But I was very fortunate to be named captain both in the 2019 season and this season. Very, very fortunate for my teammates and my coaches to put that much responsibility on me, and was really looking forward to it.
I think every team is looking for what many have called that growth mindset. You're always looking to get better. You're always looking to improve at your craft, whether it's hitting, whether it's, especially for a catcher, those defensive skills behind the plate. And it seems like that's exactly the kind of guy the Tigers want and got. Are you aware of all the things that the Tigers have done now that you've signed with the Tigers? How much have you been able to learn about how much the Tigers have invested in player development, in the tools and technology and the coaching needed to develop players? Because it seems like that's the next big growth area in baseball, the ability to draft guys and then improve them through your player development program.
Oh, I completely agree. Right now, of course, we're not allowed being with the entire staff, but we're doing our best. They're doing their absolute best to get us on Zoom calls and kind of introduce us to the entire staff and kind of start to, kickstart that process of player development. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know everybody and, starting that process.
Let's talk about some of the things you did at Ohio State. Head coach Greg Beals raved about your athleticism and that he had to get you in the lineup as a freshman. And catching right at that point wasn't an option, so they put you in center field. But he was a catcher and apparently worked very hard with you on your catching skills. Can you describe for Tigers fans some of the things that he really helped you with, and maybe some of your biggest areas of growth were in your time at Ohio State behind the plate?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one was definitely game awareness, and also just learn a lot from the game from the catcher standpoint. Obviously, my freshman year I was in center field, so I did make a huge leap from my freshman to my sophomore year at the start, just with talking through different situations, and then even developing into calling my own games at the end of that year. So I did make probably the biggest jump in my career at that point.
He raved about your catching skills, everything from blocking balls to handling a staff to calling a game, to your arm that shuts down the running game. You were quoted in a story. Cody Stavenhagen wrote a terrific piece in The Athletic the other day, is saying, well, I've still got a ways to go. What are some of the things that you feel you still would like to improve upon, with the areas that you feel still have a long way to go, because already people are raving about your defense?
Yeah, I mean, as you make the jumps through the ranks, going from high school to college and college to pro ball, there is tremendous jumps. Everybody gets a little bit better. Their stuff gets a little bit better, especially from pitchers. So in regards to that, it's mostly everybody's stuff's going to be a little bit better. So just you got to mentally prepare yourself for just handling the staff and what their different pitches are. But I also think I did make a big jump from last year to this year. One of my biggest things was I didn't want to have many pass balls. Felt like I got let too many get behind me last year. So I did kind of zero in on that part of my game and did feel like I made a tremendous leap from last year.
You said that what's the bane of existence sometimes for catchers is catching bullpens and working on your skills sometimes in bullpens. You even admit that it's not always your favorite, but you took the approach eventually that, hey, this is where I am going to learn and get better and do some of the things that you just talked about, learning your staff a little bit. But that kind of shows how the ways you can get better and your motivation to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you talk to any catcher in the game, probably catching bullpens, aside from hitting and working on a little things, probably a little bit lower on their interest level. But it's one of those things you have to do. It's very necessary, and in the big picture is something that you do want to do, because, like we said, with the player and staff development, it is a huge key to it. That's where you learn the most about pitchers, learn the most about just their different, how they tick, and their different their different mindsets on different things. So
I'm fascinated in this day and age, especially about the multi-positional player. I know you're a catcher, but the value of that guy who can move out from behind the plate or move different positions. And I think the most shining example in Tigers' recent history has been Brandon Inge, who started as a shortstop in college, went to catcher, moved to third, played some outfield that they needed him to. There's great value in a player like that. Could you picture yourself, and I know you're a catcher, I know you're drafted as a catcher and you've got great promise there, but also maybe on days when they're giving you a break behind the plate, playing in the field, would you like to keep some of those skills sharp? I mean, what the heck, you played center field.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, any way to get in the lineup, I'm definitely going to exhaust. I want to just play every day, and working on a couple different skill sets like that, shagging fly balls, taking grounders, just keep them sharp is definitely, of interest.
Your progression as a hitter seemed to take a giant step forward this year. Talk a little bit about, for Tigers fans, that process for you. It sounded like you worked a lot with Matt Engel, one of the assistant coaches at Ohio State, on your swing. I didn't know if it was retooled this past off season before this year or in the last couple of years, but talk about that process a little bit, because for catchers, that can be kind of the last thing to come. You're concentrating so much on the defensive side of things that the hitting side can come a little bit later. How do you feel you did progress, and what were some of the changes you made?
Yeah, so I came in my freshman year. So the thing with Ohio State is they usually give the freshmen a fall to kind of figure things out. It's a big jump from velocity wise and from other pitches wise. So they were able to let us kind of be athletes and let us develop on our own. And then once you got to the winter before the season or even after fall ball, they would start to change the swings a little bit, and that's where it started for me. I made some great leaps. I was front foot hitter almost when I was coming in. So losing a lot of power, losing a lot of different things in my swing. So I was able to fine tune some of those going into my sophomore year, and even in my sophomore year, I was still having a little bit of trouble with um, some consistency with my load. I was often late or early, so that was a big thing coming into this season. Was focusing on my load, making sure I'm on time, and then also just kind of making sure my hands are in a place where when I want them to come forward, that they will come forward, and that did help me a lot with my at bats in the abbreviated season this past spring. But I'm looking forward to developing even more.
Yeah, 5 home runs and 50 at bats in the shortened season. That's as much power as you had shown. Again, it was just 13 games, but still, clearly those swing changes had paid off. Now, when you think about coming to the Tigers, everybody, I mean, all good hitters look at the good swings of other players. I think no hitters maybe been studied more or people watch more video than Miguel Cabrera. What are some of your thoughts of, geez, in a couple of years, I don't know, who knows, maybe 2 or 3 years, I could be on the same team as one of the greatest hitters this game has ever seen?
Yeah, I mean, that would just be tremendous. I grew up watching Miguel Cabrera's swing and think about how pretty it is and, how much he's worked and, the consistency, I feel like is the biggest thing with him, how consistent he's been able to be for the past, decade or so. So, yeah, that would be a dream come true.
All right, what's next for you? Obviously, this is a very strange year. We all know that. Minor leagues, who knows? It just doesn't look like there's going to be much of a minor league season. We're still trying to get the major leagues going. What do you think the future holds? What are some of your plans, given the uncertainty, about how you can keep your skills sharp?
I think just having the mindset every day to do a little bit to either stay the same or get a little bit better. So right now, everything's starting to open back up a little bit here in Ohio. So we do have access to training facilities, weight programs, and stuff like that. Not at the university, but elsewhere. So going and hitting on a field on one of the high school fields around here, kind of getting some work in otherwise, but just doing some of that stuff just to stay sharp because we went from 0 to, or actually 100 to 0. From playing every day to not having anything to do. So just trying to do that, just trying to do little by little, just try to stay sharp.
Well, given your track record, I don't think that's going to be a problem for you. We certainly anticipate good things in the future. I just hope that somehow we get a chance to get you some at bats in the fall league or whatever it might be this year. But we know you're going to continue to develop. We can't wait to see you, whether it's in spring or whenever it might be, in a Tigers uniform. Dylan, thank you so much for your time today. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the organization, and all the best to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can't wait to start playing again.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Dan and Dylan. Seems like a great kid, Art, and great that the Tigers were able to scoop him in the second round. The only thing I know Tigers fans are going to have to forgive him for is being a Buckeye. That might be the only fault.
Well, yeah, I guess someone has to be, right? So, he seems like a great kid. We're really looking forward to him. I mean, here was a guy that on most projections, mock draft selections, was a first rounder. And for the Tigers to get him with the first pick of the second round, I think it could be, I know we hear this a lot, but obviously this could be a steal, one of the steals of the draft. You alluded to it earlier, Daniela, that every grade for the Tigers draft across the board has been A or A plus, and getting a guy like Dingler at 38 overall is just incredible. I mean, if you really, really look at this, Cabrera, who Matt Shepard and I talked about, could be a steal right there. Trey Cruz, who has the lineage of his grandfather and father playing in the major leagues, and then Gage Workman, who is a great hitter, great collegiate hitter, and then Colt Keith, the high schooler, the Gatorade Mississippi Player of the Year. This is a guy who could actually be along with the Torque Man, because the Torque Man's a star. I'm already labeling him as a can't miss prospect. But besides Torkelson, don't sleep on the last pick, the high schooler, who could be one of those, as they like to say, much like Riley Green, a 5-tool player. So things are looking up for the Tigers. Dylan Dingler, obviously, a great young man. And I think my first question to him is, Dylan, you grew up a huge Michigan fan. How did you end up being a Buckeye?
We might have to ask him, Art. The first chance we get, we will definitely have to ask him that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right.
I'll alienate him from day one.
Oh, geez. You will too. We will hopefully be seeing some live baseball games very soon. But until then, Fox Sports Detroit is giving us some throwback Tigers baseball games. And this week, we'll be watching a couple games from 2006, Tigers versus Indians on August 5th, 2006. And tomorrow, we'll have Tigers at Royals, which is in the September of 2006. And then you guys will get some 2006 playoff baseball later in the week. So thank you to Fox Sports Detroit for doing that for us. It's been great to watch some of these throwback games as we wait for sports to make their return. And Art, now it's time to toss it over to you for today's headliner.
All right, thank you very much, Daniela. It is time for the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. Let's bring in the television play-by-play voice of the Detroit Red Wings for Fox Sports Detroit, the one and only Ken Daniels. Ken, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Well, Art, if I'm not watching you, I may as well be with you.
Well, I can't tell you how happy I am. Tears are welling up in my eyes right now. I'm going to try to maintain my emotion. I guess my first question to you is do you like draft lotteries? I mean, I understand why we have them, but do you like them?
I like the excitement of them, sure. Yeah, I mean, to prevent tanking, as there can be glorified tanks, and then there's tanking, seen the past, the wonderment of it. Is it on the up and up? I guess this is the way to do it. I would have preferred this year, Art, to see just the 7 teams that missed the playoffs be in it, to get those picks, other than a team, in a play-in still having a shot. I would have preferred just the 7, Detroit being that group of 7, famous Canadian painters. But that group of 7 for Detroit to be in the lottery, that would be it for me. Didn't happen that way. So yeah, excitement. Yeah, it's okay.
I am a pessimist when it comes to this draft. I have convinced myself that the Red Wings are going to draft 4th, no matter what. But it doesn't matter. I am. I'm pessimistic. Hey, I want Lafreniere in the worst way. It would really help the rebuild. Stützle is a great player. I know Quentin Byfield is the youngest player in the draft, but still, unlimited potential. Jamie Drysdale, I'm still a big Askarov fan, the Russian goaltender. With all that said, regardless of where they pick, and obviously number 1 is where we want them to go, the Red Wings are going to get a pretty darn good player in the top 4.
Yes, they are. You're not going to drop lower than 4, and you didn't. There's Swedish wingers, including Lucas Raymond, whose vision on the ice, the way he can make plays, is outstanding. Marco Rossi, maybe mature enough level at a 5'9" centerman that can probably step right in. I'm not sure how many others can besides Lafreniere. I'm not even sure Stützle can, and I love Tim Stützle, and it wouldn't bother me at all. And he plays a lot of wing, but listed as a center and can play center too. And Byfield's a big player. Drysdale on the smaller side for a defenseman. So there are a lot of good players available in this draft, certainly in the top 10 for sure.
If you look at the Red Wings' needs, and they need all over the board, I mean, Steve has actually said that, but don't you think if he had his druthers, and I'm asking you to speculate here, Ken, and it's difficult getting in someone's brain, I know that, but that the Red Wings have to be looking for high-scoring wingers. I mean, they need goal scoring on this club in the worst way.
Well, they also need centers too. I think they need some support in there. To me, it's center. Certainly, they need goal, but they're not ready to win right now. So you can fill that, and hopefully that somebody comes along as you go along in the goal department, that you can get a goalie as you move along. They're not ready to win right now and make a run, so you can try to build in the goaltending department as it comes. I think center is a top priority. I actually think their defense is pretty good. I really like what I saw out of Lindstrom, and you got Hronik, you got DeKaiser coming back, you got Barton, Tuomisto, Jared McIsaac. You've got some good, and Sider, of course. So, I like the way that Nemeth played, still helping to stabilize. So you've got, I think their defense coming up over the number of years still to come, not tomorrow, not next year, season after. You've got some good defense in the pipeline. To me, it's still center, but yeah, you can always use scoring. I mean, Lafreniere is a winger. You're not going to overlook him, right? You're not going to overlook Lafreniere, but yeah, Raymond's a winger. I think you always say that, right? The best player available. I think they really need help at center, and they need offense too. I think their defense down the road is better right now than some people give it credit for.
Also on Wednesday, the NHL is going to announce its Hall of Fame class, upwards to 4 skaters, hockey players. Now, the thing is that this is the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think fans kind of get mixed up and think it's the NHL Hall of Fame. It is not. It is the Hockey Hall of Fame. There seem to be some shoe-ins of at least they can vote in up to 4 players, and then I believe it's 2 female players, and then a builder, a couple of builders in that category. So could it be anywhere from 8 people down to, depending on how many players come in, it could be as between 6 and 8. I would probably assume is the number it's going to be. I want to throw a couple of players by you, guys that are eligible for the first time, have been eligible for a long time. See if you think that they could be announced on Wednesday when the NHL does announce the Hockey Hall of Fame class. Up first, Jarome Iginla.
A lock. 600 goals, 2-time Rocket Trophy winner, 2-time 50-goal scorer, Olympics. He was the famous Sidney Crosby, Iggy, when he screamed Iggy, and gets the golden goal. And 2-time Hart with me, Jarome Iginla is a lock. First-class person. He's in.
No question. I used to pray that Jarome Iginla someday would be a Red Wing, but to no avail on that one. Doug Wilson, who I'm kind of surprised isn't in already, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, with the Norse, I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people are surprised that Doug Wilson isn't in yet. Not those on the periphery of the game. Maybe don't know the game that well now from the past, but what a shot he had. Boy, when you wanted to get out of the way. And, we talk about Shea Weber with a shot. Doug Wilson had a bomb from back there, and a very, very, a great player. I shouldn't use very good when you're talking about Hall of Fame. Doug Wilson's a great player, and I think underrated, and you may give me the same name, and I'll give you this one in the same vein, in a different way, not as offensive as Doug, but Kevin Lowe was a 6-time Stanley Cup winner. And I don't think since Rod Langway in 2002, you've seen a defenseman with maybe as low regular season stats as Kevin Lowe, although his playoff stats were a lot better. But he just won. And on a very offensive team like Edmonton, Kevin Lowe was the defensive stalwart. So I think Doug Wilson is one that people forget about. Kevin Lowe is another that people forget about.
Well, I certainly agree with you, Kevin Lowe. Again, I like Doug Wilson. I'm stunned that he's not in. I'm really stunned that he's not in. Let's continue. Alexander Mogilny. I don't even think he's borderline, but maybe it's me. I mean, this is his 12th year of eligibility, and he's still not in.
Yeah, and it's the class that he's going up against, and you haven't even got to some that he has. So, very good international player, and put up some terrific numbers, whether he was overshadowed in part by Pavel Bure. The funny thing was, I remember when Bure and Mogilny were together, and Mike Keenan, has been a longtime friend of my high school hockey coach. And I used to say, and they were both wingers on the same side. And I said to him one night when he was coaching Vancouver, and I said to Brian Burke had enough of that. And then I said, how come Mogilny's not getting the ice time? He said, because Pavel Bure never comes off the ice. Because Bury's on for so long, trying to get Bury on. Mogilny's waiting to come over. That was part of the problem. So I'm not sure about Mogilny. I think sometimes, it just depends on the year and those that are in front of you.
Well, that line, what was it? That junior line for the Russians, Sergei Fedorov, Mogilny, and Pavel Bure. I mean, that's probably
pretty good.
Could be, the top junior line of all time if you really look at it that way. First-year player. Yep. Yeah, first-year player or first-year eligibility. Guy Red Wing fans are familiar with him. I know the organization loved him. He was here for a brief period of time. Marian Hossa.
How can you not love Marian Hossa? And defensively, oh my goodness, and so strong in the puck, you couldn't get it off him. His effort was second to none. First-class guy, 3 consecutive cup finals with 3 different teams. He went chasing, and then the chase ended with 3 cups with the Chicago Blackhawks. And in that time, when he was chasing the cup and won the cup, I believe only Crosby and Malkin have more playoff points, although Pittsburgh was pretty good in that time, and he was part of that. Only for at least a short time. But only Crosby and Malkin, I think, have more playoff points in that span of time than Marian Hossa. Again, another, not that this is the be-all and end-all, but a first-class guy. I love dealing with Marian Hossa. I don't think you could find anybody to ever say a bad word about Marian Hossa. I think, for me, he's Hall of Famer in now.
All right, well, I want to go to goalies, and up first,
Can
let's
I
go to
abstain
Cujo.
on one?
wait, I'm definitely going to ask you about him, but I want to save that. Curtis Joseph, Hall of Famer?
For me, no. Yeah, as much as he's won, and believe me, those Edmonton teams that he was with, although it didn't go so well for him here in Detroit, those Edmonton teams that he was with, my goodness, and held them in games. He's got a lot of wins to his credit. And if you really think about it, Curtis Joseph also has the most losses in NHL history. He passed the Gumper a few years back. So not for me, not this year. No.
A guy that I know is near and dear to your heart, Tommy Barrasso.
For me, no. Not as great as he was as an 18-year-old come out of high school. I know you're laughing at that. I haven't had great times with Tom Barrasso, so that can be a little biased, just like a voting committee may have some biases too. So for Tom Barrasso, no, not for me. Vezina winner and a few times runner-up. No, not for me.
Goalie has some Red Wing ties. Obviously won a Stanley Cup here. Mike Vernon.
Love to see it. I'd love to see Vernon in only because I want to hear his speech. But a lot of winning and a great goaltender. Yes, I'm in for Mike Vernon. And now you're saving the last one for me.
Yes. So the last one.
Ozzy?
Yes, Chris Osgood. Does Ozzy finally get in? And you know as well as I do, if the Red Wings win Game 7 in 2009, he's the Conn Smythe winner. We're not having this discussion. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Right. I hope Chris will. I really want to see Vernie get in, and he's been waiting longer than Chris. I hope Chris never has to wait as long as Rogatien Vachon. That should never happen to him. But I think Ozzy should be in. I don't know if it'll be this year. And you know what? I hope for some people, the way it's going to go this year and probably virtual, I'm hoping maybe that Ozzy, it's not this year and he gets his due when all will be right at some point. I'd like that to be for Chris because we're closer with him. He can have that big party to celebrate because nobody likes to party like Chris and on all the friends. So maybe wait for Chris, okay? I'm good with waiting for Chris.
Well, we'll see tomorrow. We'll see on Wednesday when they make the announcement and on the conference call. It's always a good time. The guys who do have the honor of being in the Hockey Hall of Fame really get all emotional about it. And it's a nice phone call to be on a conference call on and hear them and the call when they find out. It's really well done. And best of luck to all of them. Ken, the last few minutes when we have, I know the virtual roast is with Scotty this year for the Jamie Daniels Foundation, something that I obviously anything I can do, I'm there for you. It sounds like even though COVID-19 has impacted it greatly as it has everything, but this sounds like quite an event.
It will be. We've got tributes coming from Hollywood celebrities and NHL stars, past and present, have all contributed. Some of them are just hilarious. Some of them are heartfelt, all towards Scotty Bowman. It's going to be a virtual roast day. We're hoping for late September. Haven't finalized the date yet. A lot of that depends on baseball coming back, and where is that? So we'll decide on a night where people can watch. We're still hoping for television, if we can do that in a prepackaged show where you can donate online and text to give. The silent auction is going to be spectacular, from game used sticks from Ovechkin and Connor McDavid, which is almost impossible to get, and Chara and McKinnon and Carey Price. And we've got a home in Costa Rica for a week. There'll be golf vacations, so much. And the silent auction is going to run 6 weeks prior. Dave Hodge is going to be the MC, former host of Hockey Night in Canada. Dennis Hull, Ian Bagg, and Jim Ralph, who were there last year. Dennis, one of the great after-dinner speakers. We're going to have a Zoom roast to Scotty, have that through the show, along with tributes, and from people who've lost their children, like our family has, and those who are in sobriety and recovery, and what's that about. And all the funds go toward building long-term safe affordable recovery housing here in Southeast Michigan. Since COVID-19 hit, the Jamie Daniels Foundation has already written $80,000 in grants. We're still at the Michigan State Housing Recovery Program on a drug-free dorm floor there with recovery coaches, and we're looking to expand in other colleges. So that's the long and short of it, Art. So hopefully late September, jamiedanielsfoundation.org to donate. Donate that night. We hope you will. I think you're going to have a blast. And Scotty, he's going to be 87 then, still 86. He's like he's 56, for goodness sake. Unbelievable, man.
Instagram, Ken Daniels TV. And what's the Jack Daniels podcast all about? And when we're speaking Jack Daniels, we're speaking about your dog has a podcast?
That's correct. You have to understand, it's a podcast, PAWD, podcast. It's a treat.
God.
Unleash your inner spirit, God. Art. I know. God. Okay? Seriously. Jesus. He talks, as we say on the podcast, he talks a lot of crap, Art. He's a dog.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh, gosh.
It's okay. Art, that's only Ken Daniels TV. That's a one bit. But if you want old footage of, the John Brophy days, Harold Ballard, Mickey Redmond, me with CBC with the bad just mustache then. There's so much on there, Ken Daniels TV. That's the one good thing and the only good thing that's come out of the pause for me is to be able to look back, find the old footage, find the old photos, relive a bit of the career with people that they seem to love at Ken Daniels TV. So I'm having fun with it. We're trying to make the best of an awful situation. We hope everybody stays healthy, and we're just trying to lighten the mood a little bit with all of that. And we have fun with Jack Daniels Sunday Fun Day on Red Wings Instagram, and where people can ask questions. So I think Jack Daniels, we got to give him a podcast. If only I could teach him to talk, Art.
Oh,
it's one thing I haven't been able to do. I don't know.
Well, if you can teach him to talk, I think your days, maybe, unless you really want to do it, of calling hockey games is probably over, because you've got yourself a very valuable canine there that will be in great demand.
Yeah, and Mickey's dog Murphy, they get along great. So Mick could work with Jack. Jack could work with Murph. We're fine. We're all good.
Hey, maybe they can call it. Maybe they can call a game. You never know. That would be incredible.
Art, I can guarantee you now, though, the game would be really rough.
Oh, okay. On that note, Ken, I can't thank you enough for doing it. It's always great to have you on the Word on Woodward, and also to be part of the headliner. Best of luck in everything, and I really look forward to actually seeing you in person someday soon. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Art. Me too. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was the headliner with Ken Daniels, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Well, Daniela, what can I say? Daniels is a man of many opinions, and most of them I agree with.
He is a man of many opinions, and so are you, Art. So that is very fitting. One thing I did want to ask you, you guys talked a lot about the upcoming Hall of Fame on Wednesday. Actually, we'll find out who is inducted into the 2020 Hall of Fame class. Who do you think, besides who you guys talked about? I know there were a couple more that unfortunately we just don't have enough time to talk to Ken about everything, but is there anybody else that you think that has Red Wings ties or Detroit ties that might get into the Hall of Fame?
Well, we want to get into the builders, but then I got a little sidetracked, believe it or not. And in the builders category, somebody to look for who has Michigan ties and also University of Michigan ties and Red Wing ties is Red Berenson. Red Berenson could be inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Obviously, I think he's the third or fourth most winningest coach in all of college hockey. He was the first really successful collegiate player to make the transition from college hockey at Michigan into the Montreal Canadiens. He was also an innovator, one of the first players ever to wear a helmet throughout his whole career. Really played for the St. Louis Blues, had the NHL record of scoring 6 goals in a game, but as a player, and then what he was able to do at Michigan, win a couple of national championships. So in the builders category, don't be surprised. Do not be surprised if maybe Red Berenson will be announced tomorrow, along with a couple of other guys. Obviously I'm rooting for Chris Osgood. I do each and every year. But yes, I think Red Berenson may be somebody in the builders category. It would be long overdue. We talked about Scotty Bowman at 86 being, as sharp as a tack. Red Berenson, I believe, is 80. And, he and Scotty, who, have a history together, are really tight. Red coached with him when Scotty was in Buffalo. So I think that would be cool if Red Berenson finally became a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame.
It would be very cool. And we will have any announcements regarding the Hall of Fame inductees on Thursday's show, because that is happening Wednesday night. And guys, now it's time to get into Let's Socialize. And of course, we've got to bring Carly in for Let's Socialize, presented by our friends at AAA. Carly, what do you got for us today?
Thanks, Daniela. All right. First question is for Art. Art, Chris Pame wants to know, when can trades occur again in the NHL? If so, will Yzerman make a few trades this summer?
Well, I think that's a really open-ended question. I don't think anybody really knows. Perhaps once we have the draft lottery on Friday, maybe we'll get more word. I mean, it's been pretty buttoned up. I think right now what the league is really trying to concentrate on is to get this 24 team play-in system and playoff system together, and try to get to get through phase 2, then phase 3, then phase 4, which would be the regular season. So I would think that I don't see, if they're able to get the season off, and I still think it's a big if. If they're able to get the season off, I don't think you'll be able. I think there'll be a trade moratorium. I just don't see that happening. I mean, can you trade with the 7 teams that don't make the playoffs? Sooner or later, do they give Steve a deal that he can't refuse? So I would think until the Stanley Cup is awarded, and then I think they'll open it up again. That's pure speculation on my part, because we also have unrestricted free agency. It's supposed to happen July 1st. That has been put on hold. So everything is kind of on hold right now. So I guess in a roundabout way to answer Chris's question, I really don't know, but I'm speculating right now. I don't think anything's going to be decided until they get this season off the ground, or the restart, I should say. And then maybe they'll start filtering out some dates of when things are going to happen, including the NHL draft.
Got it. Well, Art, that was a very good way to answer a question that you didn't really know the answer to. Okay, second question is for Daniela. A fan wants to know, what is your first Tigers memory?
Ooh, first Tigers memory is actually, I really can't believe that I remember this, because I was very young. I think I was 4 or 5 years old, but I have been to a game at Tigers Stadium. Like I said, I think I was 4 or 5, and I remember it being my first Tigers game, and just the atmosphere of Tigers Stadium. Like I said, 4 or 5 years old, so I don't remember too much, but I am going all the way back to my very first memory. I can't tell you if they won the game or anything. I was probably getting cotton candy at that point and really happy with that. So, but I do remember being at Tigers Stadium for my very first Tigers game.
I do. And I had a one of those little lanyards with the Tiger Stadium. I had some sand in it. So I thought it was pretty cool. I've had that hanging up in my room for a while when I was a kid. Okay, last but not least, third question is for you, Art. Hey, it's Common Gamer wants to know, say we fall to second overall. Who do we take? Is it Byfield or Stützle?
I think that at that point it's going to be the young German. I think Stützle will be the guy. I think Byfield has a lot of upside. He's a center. Everyone thinks he's going to go back to junior next year. He's one of the youngest players in the draft. I'm talking about Byfield, but Stützle is the type of game that doesn't let the game come to him. He takes the game. I know that for Mannheim, he played forward, or he played, I should say, winger, and but he was a center almost throughout his hockey career. I think Red Wings do need centers, but I think Stützle's upside is just too much. I mean, he was a guy much like Mo Seider last year. I know I've said this before. Mo Seider, when the draft rankings came out in September of that would be 2018 at that point, Seider was anywhere from 43 to 38. But as each month the rankings would come out and they would update their rankings, Seider by the end, when it was draft time, he was 14th overall. And I remember telling Steve, I said, I don't think that was much of a reach. Of course, he thought I was trying to butter him up. And he said, yeah, right. But when I told him, look, I think if the draft were a month later, I think Mo Seider would have been a top 10 pick. And they got him at 6. So Steve kind of looked at me and kind of smiled, because Seider was moving up. Well, Stützle has done the same thing. And I think that I just think there's a lot of upside for him. He's a versatile winger who has played center. I think his hockey sense his attitude. I mean, he's a complete package. And so I know it says left winger up on the screen right now, but don't be surprised if eventually the Red Wings at least give him a shot at center. I know I said earlier, much like Dylan Larkin was a center his whole career. When he broke in with the Red Wings, when they made the Red Wings at 19, he was on Henrik Zetterberg's line. It took a little bit of a transition for him to get center, but I think it was either his second season or third season in for Larkin with about 20, 25 games left. Blash will put him at center, and that's where he's been, and he's starting to thrive in that position. So I think I would have to go with the German, with Stutzla, and
Okay.
I think that's who I think they would take at second.
Another German lad for Cider to converse with in German. And I have to tell you guys, okay, the NHL posted this video for the draft lottery since we've been talking about it all show. So it's one of those videos where you have to screenshot. And when you screenshot, it says that'll be the winner of the draft lottery, right? Okay, so it's like a video like this with a bunch of the different teams. Let me show you guys what I screenshotted. I'd just like to say, I mean, I don't know if this really means anything, but I mean, come on. What are the odds? I screenshotted that.
There you
so
go,
I have
Carly.
a feeling it's going to be the Red Wings. Are you feeling good about it?
Well, I'm feeling good now. I don't want to, come off like I'm leering at you two ladies, but I hope you're at some point this week you're going to be wearing red underwear too. I think if you screenshot why wearing red underwear and it comes up Red Wings, then they're in. They've won the number one. They've got the number one pick. And I'll take your word for it that you're wearing red underwear.
I'm wearing the boxers all week, okay? Just like yours.
Lord. Love you guys. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly. A great job.
Thank you.
Way to go. You did
Somehow
a fine job today.
That's got to stop. I promise. Next week we're done with Art's underwear. So thank you, Carly, for bringing us. Let's presented by AAA. A big thank you to our friends at AAA2. They present Let's Socialize this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward. And Art, we have come to the end of the show again. I can't believe it. It always goes by so fast with you. And you had some great conversations. I really enjoyed your interview with Ken Daniels. And I liked that he was a little bit more optimistic than you were. And Carly too. Carly was more optimistic than you were too, that we're going to get the number one pick in Friday's draft lottery.
Well, yeah, I am not optimistic, and I have history on my side, because if you look at it, the Red Wings have now qualified 4 years in a row for the draft lottery. Each time they have gone down. They've never gone up. They've never stayed in their position. They've either gone down 2 spots or 1 spot. And, for whatever reason, the draft gods, the hockey gods just don't, they're just not in the Red Wings corner. Now, if there is a year for them to be in the Red Wings corner, you would hope that it would be this year. Now, even though the Red Wings have an 18.5% chance of winning the draft lottery, which is the best, unfortunately, when you throw San Jose's pick in with Ottawa's, Ottawa has a 25% chance of getting the first pick. So that's a little scary for me. That's why. But again, no matter where they pick in the top 4, they're going to get a good quality player. It's just that when will they be NHL ready? According to Craig Button, whom I really, really listen to and knows his stuff, the scouting director for TSN, he has said that next year Lafreniere is 65-point player, minimum 65-point player. I mean, that's for a teenager to do that. That would be incredible. Nothing against Dylan Larkin, the BT Express, or Tyler Bertuzzi, or Robbie Fabre, or some of the other fine young players that the Red Wings have in their system. But if Lafreniere can come in and get 65 points, he could actually lead the Red Wings in scoring as a rookie. But then again, you would think that he would make players around him better, so everyone's point total would be up, and Lafreniere would be maybe the catalyst for that. But, I know Dylan wants to get, in the 80-point range each and every season. I've talked to him about that. Big Tony, I believe, can score over 40 goals. Bertuzzi is just, junkyard dog. He's at least 60 points with 30 assists, 30 goals. So, I mean, there's hope there. But then you add in a very special player, an elite level player like Lafreniere. Maybe Stützle is that guy. Byfield could be that down the road. Or if you take Drysdale, who is, a definitive number one defenseman, as I keep saying over and over and over again. Or does Steve just go off the board and bring in Askarov, whom, even though his stock has fallen a little bit, is still considered to be, the goalie of the decade. So, it'll be interesting. I'm just eager to see how this turns out on Friday. And then, then I hope that, hockey gets going. Baseball looks like they're going to start. That's really good. So maybe we can get into some sort of new rhythm of normalcy. And eventually we'll be talking about the upcoming draft. I mean, it would have been this weekend. This Friday and Saturday, we would have been in Montreal for the NHL draft. That's always a good time. Always a lot of surprises. And go back to what Carly's question was from Chris, is that I would say this. I would say that whenever the draft lottery is, after the draft lottery, whenever the draft is, I think then it'll start opening up for trades, because I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of trades happening at this year's NHL draft, whenever that may be.
I would agree with you there, Art. And hopefully we have some good baseball news here. Hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, but definitely this week. But until then, Fox Sports Detroit will be running some more classic games for you guys, so you can check those out. We've got tonight the Tigers versus Indians from 8/5/2006, and tomorrow Tigers versus Royals, which was from 9/24/06. And of course, the rest of the week will cap it off with some playoff games. So guys, it's an exciting week on Fox Sports Detroit. But like I said, hopefully we get some live baseball really soon. And to everyone who hasn't watched the Winged Wheel yet, the Red Wings will be hosting a Facebook watch party. It will be at noon tomorrow, and you can watch episodes 2 and 3. So you'll have to watch the first one, so you're all caught up. But it'll be episodes 2 and 3 at noon tomorrow on Facebook. And Anthony Mantha is going to join Carly for the watch party. So it will be a lot of fun, a really cool interview with him. So make sure you guys are tuning into that again one more time. Facebook watch party tomorrow at noon. Anthony Mantha will be joining. And lastly, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications for the Word on Woodward, so you don't miss a single second every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. And guys, that wraps up our show for you today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Thursday.